Hello, everybody, and welcome back. If you're new here, thank you so much for clicking on this video. My name is Taylor, and today we are going to be doing a deep dive into Your Monster, a psychological romantic comedy film that I saw on HBO Max that I felt really fully encapsulated my first quarter of 2025 so far. If you are a returning viewer, you're probably wondering why my background looks different. Only we had the time. What I would like to know is, how are you? How has your 2025 been so far? Great.
Fantastic.
Yeah. So I had to move back home, not because of anything that, I did specifically. Nothing, bad has happened to me. Unfortunately, there was a event that was out of my control, as well as some other people's control. It was in someone else's control, one specific person's control. Yeah, so because there is a skylight in my kitchen, I had to move back home, and been really interesting because I have spent a good portion of the first quarter of 2025 in my childhood home. If you've ever seen my history of being on this platform, you would know that this feels very 2012 right now. I'm kind of enjoying it because I'm really enjoying this setup that I got here. It's giving Blue's Clues but with a white couch. Because I've been displaced, I found myself having to grasp with a weird feeling that has been kind of brewing and bubbling, I think, since probably last year. When I saw this movie being released, I thought, why not? Let's do this. I like subversions of different types of tropes, especially fairy tales, and this very much gave Beauty and the Beast, but make it camp. And what I ended up getting from this film was something a lot deeper. And I really wanted to unpack a lot of the themes that I felt were prevalent in this movie because I feel like it kind of got released, didn't have a lot of press around it. I know that it received some accolades during its festival season. It did release at Sundance in 2024 before kind of having a limited theatrical release and then ending up on Max. But I kind of knew that the movie was going to be made, but again, I didn't really see a whole lot of press and a whole lot of um advertisements going towards this film. And I think a lot of that might be potentially because Melissa Barrera is the lead. I don't know. It just didn't make sense why this movie wasn't being talked about. So I really wanted to take the time to discuss some of the stuff that came up for me, as well as I think why this movie is worth your time and why you should definitely learn to fall in love with your inner rage. We will be getting into some spoilers, so please be aware of that going forward. But before we get into this video, I would love to ask you to go ahead and hit that like button, hit that subscribe button, and while you're at it, go ahead and hit that notification bell so you never miss a video here on Critical Commentary. Your Monster is a 2024 psychological horror black comedy. This is on Laura Franco, a young actress who's forced to move back home after receiving a devastating cancer diagnosis. To make matters worse, she's broken up with by her playwright boyfriend while she's in the hospital receiving treatment. While she is home healing, she's also processing this abandonment and breakup, and she starts to notice that her feelings are manifesting into something that is moving around the house. Feeling or entity of being watched that she's getting is, in fact, a monster in her closet.
What's up?
Well, I just think you're honestly overreacting.
What seems to be an enemies to lovers story ends up being what I would really describe as probably the best self-love movie. I say that it's the best because this is a story about falling in love with your rage. And because this is used through the Beauty and the Beast frame, because this is a subversion of the enemies to lovers genre, that I think that we get this very campy, funny, but also seriously dark storyline about learning to kind of come to grips with the kind of person you are and loving the darker aspects of oneself.
Out right now.
No,
I'm
stop. Please
sad.
stop.
I'm really, really sad.
I just need you out of the fucking house. I need you out of the house. It's fine. Fine.
While she's convalescing and learning to kind of build this relationship with this monster in her home, she ends up finding out that the boyfriend that broke up with her is actually producing the play that she was integral in creating and is even the muse to the protagonist of that musical. She goes, she auditions, she ends up only getting offered the understudy and chorus role, which she accepts. And we get to see this really interesting journey that blends a little bit of surrealism. And that's why I found this film to be so cool, because you could see that the director, Caroline Lindy, was pulling from a lot of emotion and a lot of personal experience when she created this movie.
So when I graduated from college, I was diagnosed with cancer. I was broken up with. I'm doing very, very well now. It was a period of my life where I really developed a relationship with my anchor for the first time. Initially, I was terrified of those feelings when they started to come out. But then I realized that, this monster in me was actually, a tool that could help me identify the pieces of my life that were toxic, that were, not working for me. This monster ended up making me feel like more powerful, got me off the ground when I felt like, that life was hopeless.
I wanted to dive a little bit into the Beauty and the Beast trope because I feel like that is the biggest elephant in the room. Tommy Dewey plays the monster, and honestly, I think the prosthetics, the character and costume design was so great because it was a mixture of like what you would expect kind of inner rage to look like, especially the touches with like the cardigan, the fuzzy socks.
Wonder you do hit of mine.
Why are you talking like that?
Why are you laughing at me? I'm projecting.
Okay, you don't need to do that. It's just you and me.
Sweet mistress, what your name is else I know not, nor by what wonder you do hit of mine. Less in your knowledge and your grace you show not than our earth's wonder. More than earth, divine. Are you a god? Would you create me new? Transform me then, and to your power I'll yield. Sing, siren, for thyself, and I will dote.
The thirst is real. The thirst is real.
2024, 25, I feel has definitely been like the era of the monster girl, and I'm here for it as a fellow horror and monster lover. One of the things that I find a little bit better is the fact that there is no reveal, there's no prince in this telling of the story. The beast is exactly who he's supposed to be, and that is Laura's rage, her unbridled feeling that is locked away and hidden away from society. There's even a lot of like language that you will pick up on, I think, kind of in like the second or third watching, where you notice that like he's known her entire life. It is her who is like meeting him for the first time. The monster seems very much aware and um capable of understanding their dynamic a little bit more easily than she is, and I think that's a perfect kind of like way of showing that when you are going through this self journey, sometimes it takes a while to really understand yourself, but you will know exactly who you are at all times in the same way. Like there's certain aspects of ourselves that I think we try to hide, but that are like, you cannot hide me. The psyche will always come out eventually. And I think that's very demonstrative in their dynamic. I also really enjoyed that because there is no prince, there's also no damsel, there's no savior complex, there's no sense of, I know this is like not a real argument, but I know that one of the biggest arguments around that genre or Beauty and the Beast, that storyline, is that it enables Stockholm syndrome. And I think that to use it in a more symbolic and allegorical way fits the narrative a lot better, because it stops being about this caging and more about a story of liberation. You notice that the monster is relatively docile at the beginning of the movie and only really starts to become a little bit more alive. And by that, I mean in physical spaces where other people are also occupying that space, aka not the house. That tends to be something that you notice as the film progresses and as Laura begins to become a lot more comfortable in her own skin, as well as like more introspective in the kind of relationships that she's been allowing herself to engage in. What I mean by this is that, so Lindy was really effective in her world building skills. I noticed that, we were thrown into this community, but it was really easy, especially I think as an ex theater kid, to pick up on the dynamics really quickly. Laura is kind of a people pleaser, and that a lot of the people around her don't really respect her or regard her with any sort of sense of kindness. And her best friend Maisie is like halfway picking her up, halfway dropping her off to her appointments. Again, remember, she has cancer.
I sent you 12 pies, 100 cookies, and $5,000.
She loves to send sugar and dough when she's on a diet.
What does she think? Carbs cure cancer? Let's take a beat here, okay? I'm your ride or die, bitch! All right? Every second, every minute of every day. I'm fucking here with you, okay? Fuck, what time is it?
3:34.
Fuck! I have to go.
Do you understand that that was hurtful?
Some of the cast even kind of treat her a little bit weirdly, and there's only, I believe, like one other character that seems to kind of advocate for her. I noticed very early on in maybe like the second watching that this character was like heavily like, hey, leave her alone, stop being mean to Laura. And I was like, finally someone's being nice to Laura, because she was accepting the bare minimum. And as I get into toxic relationships, I have to get into the biggest toxic relationship that there was, and that was Jacob.
I'm happy to see you.
You two know each other?
No. Yes.
Oh.
I'm kidding.
That's funny.
We cannot all succeed when half of us are held back. Malala Yousafzai. Thought I'd start with a quote.
The New York Times is here. The New York Times. Jesse Green is sitting in row J with a fucking legal pad waiting to make me critics pick!
Oh, brother!
Oh my gosh, this man was the literal worst. He breaks up with Laura while she is in treatment, mind you, and then produces the play that she was integral in being a part of without her, and then is so cruel that he gives her the understudy role, which I understand. Her audition was rough. But I also felt like it was this weird sense of holding a power dynamic over her. You know what I mean? Like I felt like there was this weird, like, hey, I am not necessarily trying to be malicious, but I am trying to let you know who's in charge and who really is in control here. And it seemed like, because like I said, Laura was expecting just the bare minimum, that she allowed it. And so this is where you notice the most introspection starts to happen. This is where you notice Monster starts to get the most powerful. She starts to realize that she's been allowing these relationships to persist, and the only person who's really benefiting from them are these other people, not Laura. Laura is virtually alone in a sea full of people. I wanted to really quickly address the tone of this film. The tone and the color palette of this film, I think, really are what truly endeared me to it because, one, I am a sucker for warm colors, warm color palettes. I'm a sucker for fashion that's a little bit weird and a little bit off. And I think because I am an ex theater kid, I found a lot of the campy tone to just be a um, perfect way to kind of depict a story like this. Because Laura is suffering with, cancer, she's post-op, she's dealing with treatments and I think chemo. She's, dealing with a very dark and serious situation while also kind of dealing with this breakup and the feeling of being kind of betrayed and abandoned by her partner and some of her friends that you can see how this movie, if this did not have some sort of sense of humor, would be just automatically a drama horror. It would be so serious that it would probably not truly get the point across. I think by having this gallows humor, we're able to really get into a story that's a little bit more down to earth, even though it does, like I say, play with magical realism and kind of blurs the lines between stage and reality. Since having to move back into my childhood home, thinking about the themes of revenge and empowerment and embracing rage and what that looks like as an adult who feels displaced and disenfranchised, I found myself having a lot of difficulty in, I think, kind of writing out my notes here because I found that it was so much more complicated than I thought. Like I said, this has been a really rough 2025 so far. And I think a lot of you know why. I can't wink. So this is what you get. But not just this being a hard year, but also what is the safest way of getting catharsis in a time where everything is absolutely censored, monitored, and restricted? I think as a woman, as a Black woman even in particular, it's been so difficult because I've noticed that I have so much anger and so much rage that I want to get out that I know is deemed socially inappropriate. And so I've had to find other ways to cope and to deal. But sometimes you just really want to
Rip someone's heart out. Looking like the devil himself. You need some help.
I wanted to get into a specific scene, the Halloween party, because I know that the Halloween party becomes a very important scene as well as memory in the film because we end up returning to it during the big twist and reveal. During the Halloween party, this is like the first real time that we see Monster in a public space. And we see Laura acknowledging him in this public space. They dance together, they have a great night together, and that's when she sees Jacob hooking up with someone at the party. There's this moment where you notice that Laura very much is like disassociating when the stage door lever is pulled. And I found that to be really cool just because you are seeing this moment where at this point in time, her and her monster aren't completely in sync, and so, she's powered down so that he can function on her behalf, and kind of be like this proxy space for her. In that moment, we get a true glimpse of what Laura is capable of, for better or for worse. And I think that when we finally get to see that aspect of her in the final act, it's, I've watched the movie enough where at first I thought, wow, this feels so out of nowhere, so out of the blue. But when you go back and you rewatch it, and this is one of those movies that does have that kind of rewatchability because it's somewhat of a popcorn flick, it's somewhat of a cutesy type of movie. It does have a musical element to it for all of my musical theater girlies. It again, it has a happy ending where you know that her and her monster are going to be together. They go through the same the meet cute, the burgeoning feelings, the full like accepting of the feelings, which is at the Halloween party, the misunderstanding and kind of like pseudo breakup, or like the break, and then obviously the reconciliation and in the resolution of the film. I don't want to say that you don't feel the tension, because that is true. You do feel the tension. It is a psychological horror still, but it's done in a way where you feel safe in exploring these feelings. As I really sit here and reflect on my own rage, I feel like I'm so glad that I saw this movie, because I think it gave a name to, like I said before, this feeling that I had that I just couldn't truly understand. There's a lot of things out of my control right now, but one of the things that I have been really focusing on that is within my control is taking my anger and my rage and using it as fuel to do something. Putting down the microphone, proverbially walking the walk. Part of this has been also just because I've been, like Laura, trying to explore my own sense of self and come to terms with who I am, and it's been really difficult, but embracing it and falling in love with my anger has been probably one of the most healthiest things that I could have done so far this year. Okay, I am interrupting in post because I realized that I didn't totally love my conclusion. I felt like there were parts that I was skipping over because I was afraid of vulnerability, and I think I also just didn't totally have the motivation of recording at the time, since that was like a re-recording of my first recording. So bear with me. I think what I was trying to say about falling in love with my anger being the healthiest thing I could have done, what I mean is that anger is a vehicle for self-motivation, for like self-advocacy, for boundary setting like skills, and that's what I think my anger allowed me to unlock. Like Lindy said, her relationship to her anger and her rage gave her a sense of empowerment to start identifying relationships that weren't serving her and knowing when to release those relationships. In Your Monster, I believe that Laura does that by releasing that romantic hold that she had on Jacob, on thinking that, he was this amazing partner and that she had lost out on this amazing person. She kind of created the play. And I think that's something that she starts to realize through her relationship with the monster, that not only are you integral, you almost did this on your own. Like, you don't need him. And she does the same thing with her best friend Maisie. I wanted to also talk about the fact that like her mom is never there, and just the fact that that obviously shows that there was a origin to this people-pleasing behavior, this neglect that she was experiencing from her primary caregiver. Because I think sometimes women are told that we can't express rage, we can't express being angry because it's displeasing and it goes against this ladylike mentality. But in reality, what it is space to manifest change. It's a place to stand up and say, I'm strong. I don't need people who are tearing me down to be in my space anymore. And so I just really wanted to get into that because I felt like that wasn't totally explained in the original recording. I'm curious to know, like, what has this movie been like for you if you've seen it? Did you like it? And do you feel like I missed any aspects of my analysis? Because there was so much symbolism, so much going on, and I really, really would love to see Lindy do another film. This was not her directorial debut, but this was probably her biggest release, and so I would love to see her make more films. I would love to know your thoughts and more down in the comments below. Also, make sure to follow me on social media and don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit the notification bell.